Good morning. My name is Sam Cook. I'm here at NC State in the College of Natural Resources. You'll see my bio throughout the slide presentation, but it also will be shared with you at the end of the session. We'd like to welcome you again. This is day one of the Socially Disadvantaged Farmers and Ranchers Workshop, that's the title. As Rachel stated, this is USDA's Office of Partnership and Public Engagement in collaboration with the Regional Rural Development Centers. We have invited you to join a multi-day virtual workshop building community capacity around socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. It's designed for community organizers, and planners that work on this important topic on a state or community level, such as community planners, cooperative extension service professionals, elected/appointed county and city officials, producers, serving organization, cooperatives, and food system professionals. Next slide, please. Today's agenda. We'll kick off around 9 as we have done already, and have an open activity between 9:10 and 9:25. Then you'll get some definitions around the socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers and the Farm Bill provision updates. We'll take a break between 10 and 10:10, and you'll have a workshop session on heirs property, and we'll wrap up the session at the end with a couple of Q&A opportunities. Day 2 is a welcoming. Start off with another opening activity at 9:10 and to end at 9:30. We'll have an innovation identifying partnership session between 9:30 and 10, and then innovations in markets at 10 to 10:30. Should give an opportunity at 10:30 to 10:40 for a break, then pick back up with farm stress, mental health resources at 10:40 to 11:15, and a discussion on equity and justice between 11:15 and 11:45 with a wrap up. Next slide, please. So we have a set of objectives, which is to learn about the resources and strategies to meet emergent needs and challenges of socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. We will examine up-to-date information on all of USDA programs, engage in peer-to-peer connections among participants. We'll learn methods to access public data to assess needs, and develop stakeholder engagement strategies to build partnerships and accomplish shared goals. To help us do that, we have this magnificent team. Next slide, please. Joining us today is Dr. Robert Zimbabwe from Tuskegee University, Laura Elena South from the Natural Resources Conservation Services. Next slide, please. Michael Carlo, he was scheduled to be with us, but he had a family emergency today, so he will not join us. If so, it'll be later on. And myself, Sam Cook, here at NC State. Next slide. And Cynthia Celera as the Natural Outreach Specialist at USDA. Kenya Nichols, Program Director for U.S. Department of Ag. She's at headquarters in Washington, D.C. And our very own leader that's been engaging us every day to get us prepared for this is Dr. Sarah Rucker at Northeastern Region Center for Rural Development in Penn State. And next slide. Renee Costacallis, and with the food systems in the Mid-Atlantic region, and Christine Sorensen, partnership team of the USDA Rural Development Innovation Center. Next slide. Katie Hickey, Master's in Public Administration at Cornell University. Mary Nelson Robinson, a PhD and Extension Associate and Project Manager for Mississippi State Extension Service. And David Byes, he's a State Health Specialist and Associate Professor at Mississippi State University. Next slide. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Sarah Rucker.
Thank you so much, Sam, and thank you all for joining us today. I recognize that we have a few different time zones present, and either way, it's a nice time to have a cup of tea or coffee in hand for this virtual workshop. As you see, we have a large and diverse team of professionals who are passionate about the topics that are most facing socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers today, and we're so excited to get to spend the next 2 days with you all. We do have a fairly large group, and I know that over the past several months, we've all been learning new skills in how to use Zoom and be engaged in online education and sharing. And in the spirit of that, we do have a lot of activities that we're going to be just you listening and taking in information, but we also wanted to kind of give a chance for you all to know who each other is to the best that we can with our technical capabilities. And to that extent, we want to share a little bit of who's currently in the room and foster a little bit of sharing and connection among you all. Next slide. So just from our registration data, we wanted to share this back with you. We had over 200 folks register, and I recognize that we might have some filtering in. We're only in the first 7 minutes right now of the presentation. But here's just a little bit of a snapshot of who all is responding and interested in this topic of serving socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. And this is actually in order. The list on the left-hand side of the types of organizations and agencies is actually in order of the number and prevalence of who responded. So nonprofit organizations, our partners at various departments within the United States Department of Agriculture, land grant universities and colleges, state and local government, other public agencies, other college and universities who are non-land grant, businesses, and faith-based organizations. And on the right-hand side, you'll see here the level, sort of the geographic level or scope at which you all are working in, with the highest prominence here being that most of you are focused within the region of the state, followed by an even more sort of local level of the county. And then some of you, of course, work at a more broad level, national and regional. As we mentioned this morning, this particular workshop, we are piloting this for the U.S. South region. That's defined by the USDA, their definition of the South. If you are not from the South, we still welcome your attendance. This is our pilot of creating a training and resource for socially disadvantaged farmer and rancher folks to provide technical assistance to that population. And even though we'll be focusing some of our topics on areas that are very specific to the South, this might transcend and cross boundaries. We do intend to conduct at a later time workshops in the other 3 USDA regions. We just don't have those scheduled yet. So if you're from the South, a deep welcome. And if you're from another region, thanks for joining us and being with us on this pilot training today. So now that we've said a little bit about who we are, it's time to turn the mics over to you so that you all can find out who each other is. And we have a small activity planned for the next about 7 or 8 minutes. And with the help of our technical hosts at the Southern Rural Development Center, we're actually going to break out into small groups of 5. And these will be randomly assigned. And we have a prompt for you all. When you go into your small groups, just for this short little introduction, we'd like you just to share your name, where you work, your organization or agency, and the state you're from, and answer this prompt of a question. What are you most eager to learn about in today's workshop? So we're going to have about 7 minutes for that breakout. And in just a moment, Russ from SRDC is going to hit a button, and like a technical wizard, we will all be sent out into breakout rooms. And from there, you can just do that sort of round robin sharing, get to know a little bit, make some connections of who else is interested in this important topic today. And then we'll send a little chat that gives you a 1-minute warning. We'll all be reconvened here, and we'll just do a little bit of reporting out and sharing for a few moments when we come back to the big group before we get started in our main presentations today. It looks like we're all starting to fly back from virtual space. So we'll just give a minute for everyone to make that journey. And hope everyone had a really fruitful time connecting and getting to meet some of your colleagues, maybe some that you've known before, maybe some new faces. One of the goals that we have in this workshop is not only that you get to meet some of us who have been working on this material and have information to share with you, but that you also get to connect with each other. Hear the kinds of questions that your colleagues are grappling with, and hear the innovations that they might be working on. This is a critical and important time to be working on these efforts. And not only is information important, but the collegial support is a really critical piece, we believe. So we hope that that was fruitful for you all. I'm going to invite, if anyone would like to, if there are some maybe main themes around what you're most excited to learn in today's workshop. If you would like to, on behalf of your group, just write a few of those in the chat, what you're most excited to learn. We can take a few minutes now. We have a couple more minutes just to visit with each other before we begin our main agenda. And I'm also going to invite my colleague, Christine Sorensen, to, while we're still chatting, to pull up the slides again, and we'll move into, would like to report out on one more survey question that we asked of you all. So, and Robert is sharing just in the chat right now, wondering if, I think this came up in his small group chat this morning, his group was wondering if other meetings will be virtual or in person. That's a good question. I think I just want to take a moment to address this now, and I'll invite my colleague Rachel Wellborn to chime in as well. This workshop was initially planned to be in person, and we were hoping to be centered in the South, but because of the pandemic, we all, like many of you, have been shifting, and so this is why we're doing this virtually. The future is very unknown, and there was intention to be able to hold something like this in person, but I think we're all just waiting for a safe time to be able to make that a possibility. Some other chats coming in of things people are interested to learn about: networking, issues around access to land, successful idea sharing, succession planning, heirs property, clarification around socially disadvantaged eligibility for programs, and some folks here are talking about launching a Black Farmer Fund. That's very interesting. Great, I'll let the chats keep coming in, and then I'm gonna invite Christine to advance to my final slide for this discussion. So as you all are sharing just a little bit about what in your small groups, the topics you're most excited about, I wanted to share one more piece of information that we received from you all in the registration. We had over 220 people respond to this question, which was, what do you believe is the top challenges faced by socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers today? And so we did some work and collated all these answers and found kind of several main challenges with sort of sub areas. And I'll just let you kind of glance over this. I won't read everything fully here, but I'll just kind of talk about the broad brushstrokes. By and large, a challenge that many of you named was really access to capital, credit, land, equipment, and infrastructure. And there's all sorts of reasons why more systemic reasons why those are the pressing challenges. Systemic reasons such as discrimination and racism, for example, or other areas of safety and health undermining people's ability to get access to capital, credit. So we recognize that these are not necessarily discrete challenges. They're complex and they're interrelated. Additional challenges, some of that are newer, are disaster recovery, and new kinds of challenges percolating, getting into markets and lack of access to markets and lack of ability to pivot to markets, access to land, services, information, education, and training. So again, this is just kind of a snapshot, a temperature gauge of what you all have been reporting as challenges. And what I'm excited to say is that in the next 2 days, I think we're going to cover many of these topics. Not all, but I think we're going to start to do a deep dive into this. And I hope that this workshop is not the end all, but it's the beginning of getting into and addressing the challenges that are most facing our socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers and your ability as technical assistance providers to serve them. So with that, that concludes sort of our activity, our opening activity. With that, we're going to turn it on over and start to get right on into our first training topic of the day around the definitions of socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers and Farm Bill provision updates. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for joining again. Hope you have your pads and pencils or pens handy. So we're going to be covering a lot today. Again, this is the socially disadvantaged farmer definitions, Farm Bill provision updates, and what have you. Just want to make sure that everyone that's on the call kind of get a lot of the answers to some of the questions that they have surrounding the definition of socially disadvantaged. Next slide, please. Socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers are classified as a member of a socially disadvantaged group who've been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice in the past due to their identity, as members of a group without regard to their individual qualities. For the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement, this is a race-based category that we have for our socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. However, throughout the department, you'll find a few nuances where socially disadvantaged could mean one thing in one program and something else in another program. So we want to make sure that you all get the information on the programs and know which program would pertain to socially disadvantaged. Next slide. For the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement, it is considered a socially disadvantaged, or customers are considered a socially disadvantaged group if they are African Americans, American Indians or Native Alaskans, Asians, Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders, and Hispanics. Gender for OPPE, and that is the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement, and NRCS program authorities, it is not covered for women to be a part of the socially disadvantaged groups. However, if a female is a part of a veteran group, then of course she would be eligible, or she's a part of the socially disadvantaged group, that would qualify her, but just being a female alone does not qualify as socially disadvantaged. And under NRCS programs, it must be at least 50% ownership in the farmer business to be considered socially disadvantaged. And this is because historically, there were other representatives that were using a socially disadvantaged participant to qualify for the program, and it was excluding a lot of the intended recipients and beneficiaries of the program. So the 50%, at least 50% ownership was established. Limited resource farmer or rancher. This is another designation that we have throughout the 2018 Farm Bill. And most of these socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers in these definitions are provisions in the Farm Bill that will give you priority in terms of, and it varies from program to program. Some of our stakeholders and clients are able to have more relaxed regulations as it pertains to some of the programs that may require like collateral or matching funds, or they also receive priority points. So keep that in mind when you're going into the offices and ask for any provisions for any of these definitions that we're going over. So limited resource farmers and ranchers are pretty much based on your farm sales and also your total household income. And there is a self-determination tool at the link in the last bullet. Next slide. Another provision under this definition is beginning farmer and rancher. And that is a farmer or a rancher that has not operated a farm in more than 10 consecutive years. This is to address a lot of the shortages that we're seeing across the farming population. Our population in the United States is increasing. However, our farming population is decreasing. So we delegate a lot of the responsibility to feed our families through our farmers. So USDA has provided a lot of provisions for our beginning farmers and ranchers to be able to successfully compete for grants, loans, any type of assistance through USDA to assist them into reversing that trend. For contracts with a legal entity, all of the members must also meet these requirements. So you can't say, oh, this particular partner has the meet the qualifications, and then have a majority of other partners that do not. So everyone has to meet that 10-year maximum for operating a farm. Next slide, please. Veteran farmers or ranchers, these are a producer who served in the Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, or Coast Guard. And this also includes the reserves that was released from service under conditions other than dishonorable, and also has not operated a farm or ranch within the last 10 years, very similar to the beginning farmer and rancher definition, and also obtained the status as a veteran within the last 10 years. In most cases, what's required to provide proof of this status is a DD-214, which would list all of this information. And very similar to beginning farmers and ranchers, it can only be considered a legal entity if all of those members qualify for those bullets above the 10-year minimum and being released other than dishonorable conditions. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, USDA provides these incentives, for lack of a better word, that have been provided in our Farm Bill, the 2018 Farm Bill. There are a lot of programs that are out there to assist our socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers in terms of priority points. We have priority placement in the queue. I know some of our programs, if you mentioned that you are a veteran or socially disadvantaged farmer and rancher, some programs will send to the top of the queue. A lot of the funds that we have are first come, first serve. Some are based on merit. So there are set aside funding pots that are available, including peer competition. I know with the 2501 program, we have peer competition. So this is another priority that we've placed to better assist our socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. Again, ask for these provisions prior to or upon your application submission, because we're at USDA, we're not at liberty to just assume, but we just want to make sure that you know about these special provisions that are available to you that are in the Farm Bill. Next slide. Receipt for service. I did notice a lot of you had mentioned that there were some inequities in participating, some exclusions and discrimination. In the 2008 Farm Bill, we had a receipt for service initiative that also came with an approved form that's listed in that first slide, and it's to be provided to any of our customers that visit our service centers in the Farm Service Agency, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and Rural Business, Rural Housing, and Rural Utility Service, which is collectively known as Rural Development. And you must be provided a receipt for service for any approved or denied requested services. So for instance, if you go into our county or state office and you're requesting a farm loan, and you are supposed to, at least by law, we're required to have a poster or some type of notification that lets you know that a receipt for service is your right. You have, or we have provided at USDA in our service centers posters. We have a customer service number that is also listed on that poster that rings right in the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement. And this receipt for service, it protects the agency and it protects you as well as a customer that's seeking equitable access to our programs and services. So how it works, you go in, you request your service, you either are denied for whatever reasons. Maybe the funding has already been expended for the fiscal year. Whatever it is that happens, if you receive the service or if you don't, you receive a receipt for service, which is just like a receipt. If you go to McDonald's and you get a Happy Meal or Big Mac meal, after you receive your food, you get a receipt saying, this is what I ordered, this is what I received. So that protects you as well as the USDA official that assisted you. And I have seen some instances where person did not receive it and they went back to request it. And the office actually looked more into it, and then those people were awarded resources and program assistance through USDA. So it's very important that we make sure you get that receipt for services. You're not supposed to have to ask for it. It is now a requirement. The 2008 Farm Bill asked you to request it, but then the 2014 Farm Bill made it mandatory. Next slide, please. Funding. I know a lot of people want to know where's the money, so let's talk about funding really quick. Next slide, please. Funding for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. One of the most popular programs is the 2501 program. It's very competitive. It's over subscribed every year. The goal is to increase the access of and access to and awareness of USDA's programs and services as they relate to socially disadvantaged and veteran farmers. And we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to operate sustainable farming operations. So that's the key, sustainable. So next slide, please. The intent of the program, again, is to bring awareness and increase participation in our programs. And the recipients are nonprofits. It can be higher education institutions. Of course, we have relationships with our land-grant universities, our 1890, which are our historically Black colleges and university, our 1994s, which are tribal land-grant colleges and university, or our Hispanic serving institutions. And most of the applications that we receive and most of the funding is awarded to our nonprofit, non-governmental organizations. And those three categories, which that last one is the other category, which are 1862s or nonprofits without our 501c3s, they receive the least amount of our funding. I would say the nonprofits will receive probably about 70% of the funds. Our higher education institutions, about another maybe 20, 25%, and then our 1862s receive about 5% of the funding historically. But the program is not for individuals. The program is to provide funding to the nonprofits and higher education institutions to in turn go into their communities to share the opportunities that are available, increase these program participation among our socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers who need it most. And in the Farm Bill, the 2018 Farm Bill provided priority to our non-governmental community-based organizations. So what we do at OPPE, we provide additional points for non-governmental and community-based organizations, and we also provide the majority of the funding to those entities. Next slide, please. The Farm Bill combined the 2501 with the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program. So we share 50-50 of the funding pot. So for this fiscal year, we have $30 million, and we currently have an opportunity to participate in this program. We will be awarding $15 million, so we will have that opportunity is in grants.gov. We will have that open, the opportunity open until August the 24th. And as you can see on the chart, each year we will be receiving additional funding, which will maximize that outreach across the country. And we will cap out at $50 million, where we would share $25 million by 2023. So next slide, please. The maximum grant for this fiscal year is $150,000. I know, and this is $150,000 per year for up to 3 years. I know that the Farm Bill allows for up to $250,000 per year. However, we're trying to maximize funding and be able to reach as many people as possible. So we have reduced the funding amount to the $150,000 per year. There is no matching fund requirements with this grant. That's one of the things that make it very popular. And also there is a new provision for peer review. So if you're interested in serving on our peer review panel for next fiscal year, we'll put the information in the chat room so you can send your application or your your resume to us to be considered for next year. Geographical diversity. I know the funding historically hasn't been a lot to reach every state, but we try to make sure that we at least award funds based on merit in the regions throughout the country. And stakeholder feedback is very important and is also now a requirement. And we normally do it during our annual symposium. However, in the chat box, I will send the email. It's 2501grants@usda.gov. And we consolidate all feedback and comments on the program so that we can make enhancements for that next year. So again, I will put that in the chat so that everyone will have access to it. Next slide, please. We also have an additional funding opportunity available, and it's only for this year. It is not promised. We're uncertain about the future of this program or this funding opportunity, rather. It's not really a program. It's a consolidation of 2501 funding along with National Natural Resources Conservation Service. They've matched the $2 million to create a $4 million opportunity. It's the same amount that's available on a annually basis, $150,000 per year for up to 3 years. It's the same requirements for 2501, with the exception that all projects must have projects and proposals to be working with persistent poverty counties. There is a list of persistent poverty counties that we have furnished within the NOFA, which is the funding opportunity announcement, and that is on grants.gov. I'll also post the opportunity in the chat room, but it's OPPE-014 and OPPE-015, and that can be located on grants.gov. Next slide, please. The expiration date, August 24th, for the communities or Centers for Communities of Prosperity grant that's open. That's the $4 million one. And then the regular 2501 grant expires, the deadline rather, is August the 26th. And both of those deadlines are firm. If you're interested in participating, I strongly suggest that you open your account or update your account at grants.gov, because all applications have to be submitted through grants.gov. I know one of the questions we received was, can you apply for both? Yes, you may apply for both. However, you probably will not be awarded for both. The Centers for Community Prosperity grant asks and requires that you create a local prosperity council. And this slide is a diagram of that local prosperity council. We want you to partner with your national community organizations, your state, local, private partners, your board of education, definitely with USDA, and create a local prosperity council where you are able to do an assessment of the needs of the socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers in persistent poverty counties, and as well as limited resource producers, to get their needs so that we can channel resources based on those needs. So within that funding opportunity announcement, you will see a step-by-step guide into how to create your proposal. Next slide, please. Again, the deadlines are firm in grants.gov, and we have already submitted or widely disseminated, rather, the notification of these grant opportunities, and I'll also place them in the chat box. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in being a reviewer, that is the website, or I'm sorry, the email address to submit your application or any inquiries. That is our general email box for the 2501 program. Next slide, please. We also have a new body for our Minority Farmers and Ranchers Advisory Committee. Those members were announced July of this year, I guess within the last 2 weeks ago. There was a public meeting that was held last week, and the members are serving 1- and 2-year terms. There will be a new solicitation if anyone here on the line is interested in participating and serving on that committee. Would you like to see the press release? It has a list of all of the members and their states. If you are interested in reaching out to them, Eston Williams on the OPPE staff is the designated federal officer for that committee, and he'll be happy to get any information to any of the members or get you the information so that you can have an input on USDA's programmatic decisions. Sometimes people are at the table making the decisions, may not be aware of all of the challenges being faced. So this committee can be your conduit to get to Secretary Perdue, be able to hear some of the recommendations that you use your voice in order to help your communities. So I strongly advise you all to just become familiar with them and just participate in the meetings. They are public meetings. You can provide comments to the entire committee at these meetings, or you can send an email with your comments to the actual committee members through Eston Williams. Again, he is our liaison down at Tennessee State. Next slide. We have contact information for the 2501 program. We will also be taking any comments and questions that you may have regarding moving forward with the comments. That is the website or email address. I keep saying website. The email address there, the 2501 grant staff. Also contact information for grants.gov. Next slide. We have a little bit of information for you all that talks about or displays agricultural census trends. And we have our very own Katie from the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement that's going to just give you some information on the status of socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers from our ag census. So Katie, take it away.
Hey everyone, so I'm here today to go over some trends from the two latest agriculture censuses, which were in 2012 and 2017. The Census of Agriculture is conducted every 5 years, and the next one will take place in 2022. Next slide. Right. The Census of Agriculture collects data on the race and ethnicity of farm producers. This census uses the categories identified by the Office of Management and Budget, which specifies that race and ethnicity are two separate questions. Producers who identify as Hispanic can be of any race, and producers can select multiple race options. We're limited on time, so we're only going to look over a few data points, but many other statistics, including down to the county level, are available on the National Agricultural Statistics Service website, which is nas.usda.gov. A notable change from the 2012 census to the 2017 census is that the language used to describe individuals who make decisions on the farm was changed from operators to producers. This led to a greater number of individuals being identified as producers in 2017. The total number of farms was down by about 3%. However, the number of producers was up by 7%. And one reason for this increase is because more farms reported multiple producers. In 2017, 54% of farms reported more than one producer, while in 2012, 56% of all farms reported only one operator. So when comparing data from 2012 to 2017 for any demographic group, this overall trend needs to be taken into account, as well as the change of language from the two census years. Next slide. This slide shows how the number of farms have changed where at least one producer is of the specified race or ethnicity. The 2017 census showed a decrease in the number of farms overall, yet an increase in the number of farms with Hispanic, American Indian, Asian, and Native Hawaiian producers. There was, however, a decline in the number of farms with a Black producer. Next slide, please. Overall, 3.3% of the producers in the United States are Hispanic. The majority of the Hispanic producers are concentrated in the Western US, as well as Texas and Florida. If we look at the table to the side, it shows a few data points from 2012 to 2017 and how they've changed. These data points include the number of Hispanic producers and their average age, as well as the number of farms with Hispanic producers, the average size of those farms in acres, and the average total value of products sold. Next slide, please. Here we have American Indian and Alaska Native producers. Overall, 2.3% of producers are American Indian or Alaska Native, with the majority being concentrated in Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and in the Northern Plains. And the table to the side also shows several different data points from 2012 to 2017 for this group. 0.7% producers in the United States are Asian. The share of Asian producers is highest in California and Hawaii, with a little bit in Florida. And the table includes the same data points from 2012 to 2017. I'll give you a few seconds to look at those. And 1.4% of producers are Black or African American, with the majority being concentrated in the southern US. As I noted before on the number of farms, the number of farms reporting a Black or African American producer decreased from 2012 to 2017. But in the table, we can see that the total number of Black or African American producers actually increased, even though the number of farms decreased. Next slide. And 0.2% of all producers are Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, and they're primarily concentrated in Hawaii, with a few smaller concentrations in California. And you can look at the table for the same data points for this group. As a reminder, all of this data and other data you may be interested in can be found on the National Agricultural Statistics Service website, which is nass.usda.gov. Thank you for your time today. So I think this is time to open up for questions for either Kenya's portion, or if you have any questions about the agriculture census. I know that there were some questions in the chat box that I believe Kenya has gotten to, if anyone has anything.
I have a question. This is Jillian Highshaw from Farms. In terms of the census, do you also include urban farmers in the count of producers and operators?
So someone else could step in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it does include, I believe, all farmers and ranchers up to 4 producers per farm. You can check in on the data. This data here came from the race, ethnicity, and gender profiles from 2012 to 2017, which includes gender, demographic group, veterans, everything else.
And also, this is Kenya, we will have a NASS presentation with a NASS professional who can answer that question a little bit more in depth. But I know this is the first year that we have started our new urban ag office and program. So I'm not 100% certain, but that can be a question that we can make sure is addressed on the NASS presentation.
Thank you.
This is Tamika from People's Foundation. Thank you for the presentation this morning. I had a question also along that same line, but maybe to clarify on the urban farmers. Sometimes the rub there is that there's really no size requirement to be identified as a farmer. So you're probably going to have to toggle down in the NASS website and look in the county and in the region that's defined as urban and see how many farmers are accounted for and accounted for in those sections. So thank you for that. So these numbers with respect to statistics, you say they can be found on the NASS website, but are we able to export reports that can give us some of the data that we're looking for?
A lot of the NASS reports are available on our website, but there are a lot of fact sheets, a lot of reports that are downloadable. Most of them are Excel or PDF. So yes.
And I'd just like to pop back on for facilitation purposes and say we've got 2 more minutes for other questions for Kenya and Katie on this first presentation. And we'd also like to encourage you to type your question in the chat, because if we can't get to them all, we will respond to all these questions in our follow-up communications from this workshop. So we've got 2 more minutes before we go into our 10-minute break, and keep the floor open for any more clarifying questions. And I'll answer a question live right now from Julie to everyone. Will we receive a copy of this presentation? Yes, this presentation is being recorded and you will have access to that. We also are having day 2 tomorrow and they will all come together. Even if you've only attended one, you'll get both recordings. And if there are no other questions, I'm going to suggest that we move into our break time. This would be a time to go refill your cup of tea or coffee, go have a stretch, and we will resume. And the second portion of today's discussion is going to be all on the topic of heirs property. And we have several incredible resources who are going to really bring us up to speed on some of the issues and resources for that. So everyone enjoy your break, and we'll see you in 10 minutes.